It's me, Mario!
Hello and welcome back to Afterglow, episode 64. This episode I recorded a little bit in advance because I'm going to be out of town for about a week or so, and I wanted to make sure that an episode came out while I was out, so this is it. And of course, it's episode 64. Being 64, even though I don't have a ton of childhood memories and experience with the N64, I had to do an N64 game. And what better choice for an N64 game than the original launch title for it, one of like two or three, I believe, Mario 64. I believe that Pilot Wing 64 was also in launch title. That might have been the only two, if I remember correctly. Of course, everyone flocked to Mario 64, and it was definitely fun to play. It's a figment of its time, in my opinion, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it is a great game. I personally don't think it hits the highs of Mario 3 or even Mario World, but I do think it is an absolutely fantastic game. But you might be asking yourself, if I didn't have an N64 as a kid, and the girl I was seeing at the time, she didn't have a copy of this game, how did I play it and how do I have childhood memories of it? Well, you'll find out all about that after our music cut. Welcome back. So, as you heard in the intro, I did not have an N64 as a child. So, to answer that question, what I did have was a PC. And in 1999, an N64 emulator finally came out by the name of Ultra HLE. Ultra HLE was not your standard run-of-the-mill emulator, though. A lot of emulators, as a matter of fact, most of them, even to this day, do what's called low-level emulation, where they try to completely copy what the chips inside the system do in order to play the game. HLE, though, stood for high-level emulation. So the difference between low-level and high-level emulation is, imagine you taking a Xerox machine with a typed piece of paper, putting it on a copier, hitting the go button. You end up with a copy of what it can do. Well, a copy of the paper. So imagine taking that same paper Instead of copying it, you take another piece of paper and you write down what's on that paper. It's you get the basic idea across, but it's not an exact copy. That's pretty well what high-level emulation is. It doesn't do exactly what those chips do. Instead, it does an approximation. Now, this meant that the games that they ran great, but they had to individually code each game to run on it. I believe like there are only like 20 games compatible, which at the time I didn't care, because a lot of the games that I wanted to play were compatible, such as Mario 64, of course. Wave Race was a big one. Star Fox was a big one. Pilot Wing 64 was a big one. I think those were actually the primary 4 I wanted to play. Speaking of playing stuff, of course, I didn't own this stuff at the time, so...
Do what you want, 'cause a pirate is free. You are a pirate. You're hard indeed. Being a pirate is a right indeed. Do what you want, 'cause a pirate is free. You are a pirate. You are a pirate.
Yeah, it was straight piracy. But it was very, very tricky in 1999 to emulate the N64. You had to have the right hardware. Yeah, a fairly low-spec CPU would do the job. I believe at the time I had a 500 megahertz machine, but it did require a 3DFX graphics card. For those of you not in the know, these days there's only 2 major companies for graphics cards. You have AMD and you have NVIDIA. Back then you had a third player called 3DFX, and honestly I think they made the best cards back then anyway. And I happen to have one of their cards in my machine. It was the first upgrade I ever did for my computer. I bought a 3DFX Voodoo 3 PCI, because this machine did not have an AGP slot. Another old school shout out if you remember AGP slots in computers. Anyhow, it took a very specific hardware set, but it allowed you to play Mario 64, and I dropped a few frames here and there. It wasn't perfect, but it was definitely playable. It was very strange playing it using a keyboard instead of a controller, but that's the way I did it. And I really did enjoy it quite a bit. Didn't beat the game this way. I want to say I got up the first stairwell into that first area. Well, not the first area. It's the first upstairs area, though. It's after you get through the basement. And that's pretty well where I stopped. I was more or less just dabbling with the emulation for the most part. It was cool. It was fun. I do remember getting very frustrated playing with the keyboard in the level that has all the lava everywhere. It took me forever to get anywhere in that level. Same thing with the sand level, if I remember correctly. But later on, yes, I did actually legally acquire this game, sort of. I got it for the Nintendo DS. And a lot of people don't like that version, but this is the version that I ended up beating. And I did have fun with it. Later on, when I started game collecting, of course I got an N64 and I got this game, and it was a lot of fun to replay it again. And honestly, the N64 version does look a lot better than the DS version, in my opinion. The DS version has this grainy look that the N64 didn't have. But I did really, really enjoy finally playing the original version using that funky N64 joystick, even though I was more than a decade behind. But overall, I thought it was good. That being said, there's a part of me that didn't feel like it was revolutionary to the degree that Mario 1 and Mario Land were for their respective consoles. I know that sounds crazy. It's like it's one of the first 3D platformers, and it was revolutionary, don't get me wrong. But there's something about the level design in this game that I just didn't get into nearly as much as I did the level design for the 2D Mario games. That's really something that's almost stuck around with me to this day. Like, I didn't get into a 3D Mario game until Mario Galaxy for the Wii. All the others were just, yeah, they were fun, but they didn't recapture that magic that those old Mario games did, at least till Mario Galaxy. And then after Mario Galaxy, as far as 3D games, again, it took me till Mario Odyssey to really get into another solid 3D Mario game. Everything else I wanted to play was 2D, and even for the 2D ones, honestly, Mario Maker scratched that itch for me. I significantly enjoyed Mario Maker and Mario Maker 2 more than pretty well every other mainstay 2D game after, I'd say, Yoshi's Island. Hot take, I know, but it is what it is. That being said, I did really enjoy Mario 64. It's not a bad game by any means. It's even better than a good game. It is a great game. Like, if I were to score it on a scale from 1 to 10, it's an 8.5. It's a great game. It doesn't hit the 9 and the 9.5 that the earlier games do, but it's still way up there. And I enjoy it more than I do something like Mario Sunshine, for example. But that's pretty well it for my main memories of Mario 64. I took a weird path of playing it and emulated it. Although that did give me some benefits. I got to play it in a higher resolution than the N64 could do, and it looked very, very pretty. Of course, nowadays there's actually a native PC port that, we're not supposed to talk about, but it is out there, and it, of course, looks amazing and is moddable as well. So, if you want to play Mario 64 these days, I would recommend you go out and you buy a legal copy, but after you own that legal copy, get that PC port, because, dear God, it looks amazing, and you can mod it all you want with, like, high resolution, and it's just a beautiful version of the game. But that's it for my memories of Mario 64. We're going to play some music before we run the outro. As always, thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to another episode of my podcast. I would not do this if no one was out there listening, so for each and every person listening out there, I greatly appreciate it so much. Y'all are the reason why I want to share these memories with you, and as long as you guys are listening, I'll continue making these. So if you're interested in maybe a little bit more of retro gaming memories, check the show notes page. There's a Discord. You can go hang out with some of the people who have been on the show before. There's a few other people that hang out in there. Again, it's a fairly quiet Discord, but I would love to get some more people in there. If you want to support the show, there is indeed a Patreon. You can find that link as well. For $1 a month, you get a shout out during every episode. And I also tend to post some news and whatnot over there every once in a while. All the news is free. The only thing that the dollar does is really give you a shout out, and there's like a Discord server. I added a channel in the Discord server that's for patrons only. Don't expect much to happen with that, but hey, it's there, right? If you enjoy what you're listening to here, also check out friends of the show. I bring up these guys every episode. Retro Gaming Roundup, huge back catalog, all kinds of stuff to listen to there. Secret Levels, also majorly huge back catalog, all kinds of good stuff to listen to. Lost and Gone podcast. He's a newer podcast, doesn't have as much of a backlog, but his work is great and he's very entertaining to listen to. As far as our show, the logo, the artwork has both been done from TobyVonDoom from Secret Levels, and the music intro and outro is done by Grim from the Lost and Gone podcast. So it has been a heck of a May. We had a few shorter episodes, and then we had the big one with Keaton, who did Final Fantasy VI with me. Go back and check that out if you haven't listened to it yet. And coming up is another theme month. That's right, in addition to Spocktober from last year and Big Meaty Men Slappin' Meat in March, June is going to be a themed month based entirely off of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And special shout out to Soups from the Secret Levels Discord, who came up with a name for this. We're calling it Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Secret of the Reviews. I absolutely love that name. So I asked him if I could use it, and he's like, yeah, absolutely. Speaking of Soups, he will be a guest in one of the episodes, and I also have 2 more guests locked down. There might be one more, I don't know yet. The other episode might just be another solo episode, or it might be another special, I don't know. But next month will be huge because we're going to have more guests on this show than we have ever had before. And every episode is going to be on Ninja Turtles, so it's going to be a blast to listen to. Hope to catch you then. Thank you for taking time to listen to Afterglow, and we will see you with all kinds of Ninja Turtle reviews coming up in June.